And Jake Tapper joins us now with more on that story. Jake, thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. And then the film, we should note, is now finally available in Canada through digital and video on demand. And I want to make, because the movie came out on July 3rd in the U.S., and I kept hearing from my Canadian cousins and friends, when can we see it here? You can see it now as of today.
There you go. You've got a lot of good sources. Your mom was born in Ottawa, so you get honorary Canadian status, Jake. But, you know, it's interesting. A lot of our viewers will know you from your work in television over the years, but you've talked about this being one of the most important achievements in your own career. Tell us about the story behind the Outpost.
So on October 3rd, 2009, there is this small outpost, only 53 U.S. troops in this remote corner of Afghanistan, northeast Afghanistan, at the base of the Hindu Kush Mountains, about 14 miles from the Pakistan border. The outpost was in a horrible position at the bottom of 3 steep mountains. And at dawn, an overwhelming force of somewhere between 300 and 400 Taliban attacked the outpost. And they did so in a very strategic, methodical way, so that everybody there thought that they were going to die. Ultimately, it ended up being the deadliest day for the U.S. in Afghanistan in 2009. 8 service members were killed. But the U.S. ultimately did beat back the Taliban and retake the outpost. And the book tells the whole story of the outpost, from its birth to its successes and then its failure at the end, its battle. The movie is more focused just on the battle. And it tells the story, the true story. You don't need to watch a superhero movie. You can watch this real movie about real life heroes and what they did for each other, to save each other that day. And like I said, it's available today in Canada.
And it has spurred a fresh conversation around the issue of war, the subject of Afghanistan, which, look, at the end of the day, as we live through COVID-19, there hasn't felt like a lot of other time to have other conversations in Washington.
That's right. I mean, the war has now been going on for almost 19 years. And the Globe and Mail, in its review of the Outpost, said that they were surprised that Rod Lurie, who has been such a political director in his previous films, made such an apolitical war movie. Rod did an amazing job immersing you in the battle, making it feel as though you're actually at this outpost. But the truth of the matter is, you don't need to take a political position or bring whatever baggage you have, pro or con, when it comes to Bush or Obama or Trump. The fact is that we in the United States, and to a lesser extent Canada, are throwing soldiers into very, very dangerous positions and asking them to do, in some cases, the impossible. And that is just a fact. That is just the reality of the experiences these men and women have in Afghanistan and other parts of the world. And whatever politics people bring to it, they can bring to it. But we all need to talk about this, because the war in Afghanistan is still going on 19 years later. And we need to talk about why we are sending these men and women into harm's way. It's, I think, something like 150 Canadian service members have been killed over there. It's something like 2,300 U.S. service members. Why are they there? And I hope that this movie prompts some conversation, as well as just recognition and appreciation for all these service members, for what they do, because our government tells them to do it. Our governments, plural.
Well, it is a powerful film and a great book, Jake. Obviously, administrations are measured, whether it's on what's happening with developments in war, or obviously with the COVID-19 pandemic. We're covering it every day. We're watching the reporting that journalists like you are doing. Can you just give us a sense on how it feels, the sentiment in the United States, especially with this fast approaching election?
Well, the way that the Trump administration has handled or mishandled this pandemic is very, very frustrating to cover, because first you had all of February and early March, when President Trump was acting as though this was not a threat at all, everything was going to be fine. And then since then, this rather erratic leadership, sometimes he's pro-mask, other times he's anti-mask, and there really has not been the kind of unity in the United States, political unity that we've seen in Canada, where even rivals from different provinces are banding together. And yes, it hasn't been perfect in Canada, but comparatively, it's been a real success story. And per capita, Canada is dealing with this much better in terms of containing and isolating the virus. Unfortunately, that's not the situation in the United States, and now the virus is spreading out of control. We still don't have good contact tracing. That's the ability to find somebody who has the virus and make sure everybody who has had contact with that person knows, so that they can be isolated from the public so as to reduce the spread of the virus. We don't have that in anywhere near the shape and degree that we need. And testing, even though I think the U.S. actually tests people more per capita than Canada does, it's been a little late to that. So it's been very frustrating covering it, because health officials will say what needs to be done, and there is no federal leadership on these issues. We're still lagging way behind when it comes to testing, contact tracing, results from tests. So yesterday the president finally put out a tweet in which he was encouraging people to wear a mask. I mean, that came on July 20th, which is really late in the process, and it's been very disappointing, this lack of leadership. Just empirically, this lack of leadership has a body count, 140,000 plus dead Americans. We have 4 to 5% of the world's population, and something like 25%, according to official numbers, 25% of the world's deaths from this disease. It's been an ultimate. It's tragic, and it's very sad to cover, to be completely frank. It's sad because you see what could be done, and you see people on Capitol Hill who want the White House to take the lead, and yet he just doesn't.
Yeah, and we'll have to obviously continue to watch it all unfold. But obviously, as people try to get back to some kind of normal, there are things like, for example, going to the movie theater, which are, big unknowns these days. One thing that is kind of interesting, though, I mean, you wrote this book in 2012, and I don't think we lived in a world then where, something goes straight to on demand. The one thing we're seeing, whether we're buying stuff online or watching movies, it definitely is a different world. So I'd love to get your experience on that front as well.
Well, I mean, obviously that wasn't what we wanted. We hoped to premiere the film at the South by Southwest Film Festival in Austin, Texas, but then the festival was canceled. And I think it is showing in a few theaters, but there are a bunch of movie theater chains in the United States that are shut down for understandable reasons. So, with people dying, it's hard to feel bad for yourself because your movie is on demand as opposed to in theaters. I will say that this is a movie that deserves to be seen on a big screen. So if you're watching at home, hopefully you have a big screen and can turn off the lights and experience it that way, because it's a very immersive film. But to be frank, I'm more concerned about schools opening in the fall and how the U.S. is going to deal with that, because, if schools, for example, had some sort of way to test everybody at the school every week, then I think that would bring a lot of comfort and reassurance to parents that, okay, we should do that. We can send our kids to school with relative safety. But we don't have that ability in the United States. I don't know what the plans are in Canada for reopening schools. I know you've done a better job of containing the virus, but in some ways, I do think that the virus is hastening, quickening measures that were going to happen anyway, like movies going right to video or going right to video on demand as opposed to in theaters. I think that it's just speeding up that process, just like it's also probably speeding up the process of more and more Americans working from home. So some of that is just, it was going to happen anyway. But the larger issue of the U.S. still doesn't have a hold on this pandemic. I was interviewing the mayor of Miami-Dade yesterday, and he was talking about how they don't have any contact tracing really in his area. It just breaks your heart.
So much to continue to watch. Well, Jake, we appreciate your insight and sharing the story with us this morning, Jake Tapper. The movie is powerful. It's a great book as well, The Outpost, and as Jake mentioned, and we give him honorary Canadian status because his mom was born in Ottawa.